Well, first and foremost, I think I'm very much grateful to have been privileged to lead such a big organization as the Trans-Orange Conference, operating within the Southern Union of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. I woke up to realize that this is a big responsibility, that it's not only a celebration of office, but an advancement of responsibilities. What I picked up is that we as blacks, especially after being exposed to international developments, like when you are in the US, you learn the black people there have what they call the black agenda. It becomes a context in which you appreciate the plight of the black people, especially African people in South Africa, because when you go overseas, black means Asian, non-white. But when you come to South Africa, black refers to historically Africans, natives. You realize that we are the only group that were underdeveloped. We operated only on a level of membership that is harvested, but being existing as members and individuals that are not rooted and advancing in terms of assets, in terms of mission in a tangible way. By that I mean no schools, no hospitals, no administrative offices, no church buildings, no conference assets in terms of infrastructure. And therefore, that way we were poorer. We were just living by breathing, but not actually existing in terms of leaving a legacy. So that was our focus of our leadership since 2000 and 2007 to 2010. Yeah, then with that, I think the people generally of the Trans-Orange Conference had started to realize that they need to grow, expand, and develop, so that we are not just a numerical mass, but we become a resource. We become resourceful, and we become competent to advance and manage mission. And that will mean space and utility of space, or utilization of space will mean we must build. We must have a position. And so, yes, we identified that, and then we first prioritized. We say, one, we are going to buy offices. We are going to, and we bought offices there in Orange Grove. And we say we're going to demolish and build, so that whenever we talk merger, we have been haunted by this discussion of mergers. Every time when they say, where will be your primary office, they will say Oxford, corner Oxford and Kigby in Bedford View, which is the resident office of the people of other colors, because we had no space. And so we developed to capacity. And that development of Orange Grove offices there, which we bought, demolished, and then extended, they were to have a lifespan of about 40 years. In other words, the buildings so constructed to be so relevant technology-wise, environmental-wise, and also spatial-wise. And this is the model we learned when we were in Washington, to say this is how you construct your things, so that you are you don't in every 10 years say you are renovating. You take into account the direction of things and then you build. That's how we built. After that, then we said, look, every district must have a conference facility. And these conference facilities will be room for development and investment of the members. And that's the direction we're taking. Development of churches, also church buildings. We realized that the quality of the churches that were built, like the first model church, model modern church was the Orlando West Church, which was our pride for a long time. Then you have Golden Harvest that built also one of the best churches after Orlando West. Then you go to Mamelodi Central and so on. Looking at that, then our churches were said not to be insurable. And that's a great problem. Setcom is taking our monies under the guise that it's insurance, but whilst people think they insure the buildings and the contents, you find that neither of those things are insured because they are said to be uninsurable. So we also had to look at those items. How do we address it? Now people are saying this is Setsiba's move. Setsiba and his committee have exposed the church to risk in that our buildings are taken out of the insurance. But the thing is they are uninsurable. So if they are uninsurable, what insurance insures them except that they are harvesting the premiums without a corresponding obligation? And this remains true even up to today in 2018. So how we wanted to respond to that, we then employed somebody who's going to advise. First, it is important. You find members are just happy they've got a site. But you find members like in Kempton Park where they got a site, they built, only to find that they're building on top of important pipe infrastructure for the municipality, and they have to demolish. So then you realize that as things develop, there's thirst for land occupation, but consequent results are that it has to be an informed occupation of land. And then we had that department of infrastructure quality surveying, so that when we choose a site, when we build at every step, we do something that will be compliant and insurable. Yeah, I think when we are still on the issue of insurance, number one, it is not true that we have exposed the church. Our administration had exposed the church in terms of not insuring properties. Those properties were said to be uninsurable. So then, that also, it is not consistent with mission and development in the world church, especially when it comes to Africa or non-Western countries. Because you find that for example, villages and rural areas and so on, those are unsurveyed in most areas. And when it is unsurveyed land, how do you insure that property? But now the General Conference was moving in a direction that was mission-friendly, in that the requirement was not the occupation certificate, which is required by, for example, this Setcom underwriters who are saying, look, you have to have an occupation certificate. To have an occupation certificate, you need a lot of compliance, which are not minimal. Compliance that, for example, fire, water systems, electricity, you understand? They will need to check whether the materials that you have used in the building is consistent with what was supposed to have been used, a lot of issues. And then they can give you a occupation certificate that this is a safe building. But in how many of our church buildings can that happen? And that is also something that came out of amendment of building laws. You remember in South Africa, building regulations, you had colored building regulation, Indian building, African building regulation, white building regulations. So when they amended so that we are now a united South African community, then the blacks were always behind. And they have been occupying land. They had buildings that are older than these regulations, and therefore most of our buildings were rendered uninsurable. So, coupled with the majority of our people are in rural areas, living in unsurveyed land, this insurance program by Setcom is not mission friendly, and it is not consistent even in SID, which is the regional international division where the union belongs. So you can see the leadership of the division silent, the leadership of the union ignorant, the leadership of the local conferences negligent and uncaring. So then when we lead, we develop the people, we lead with the people. We cannot occupy space in leadership and at the same time remain leading people who are going nowhere. Now, why are you a leader? We are not leaders because we must read Matthew 1 verse 21. We are leaders because our scope must be comprehensive advancement of the people. Yeah, you see, sometimes when people talk, you really think what they are saying will never happen. Because number one, the administration of the church must never be arbitrary. And by that we mean leaders must not thumbsuck what needs to be done. Whatever needs to be done within the context and authorization of policy. Now, the 2013 session was just one complicated myth, which was propelled by fear and propaganda. So our executive committee realized to say, look, why call that session? Number one, people should understand that within various organizational structures of the church, there is autonomy, but there is a duty of mutual cooperation. In other words, there's no escalation of liability. There is independence of decision. You must remember this is a global church. But being a global church does not mean that we will respond the same. It depends on our response as a church must comply to the national setting also. I mean, legislation where we find ourselves operating. So when you look into February 2013, you realize, number one, the forces that voted February 13 session to be there had diverse interests. You have LFM that was saying the leadership and the committee must be removed. You had the union that was saying Setcom wants to take property. But other than that, I don't want to defame people, but without defaming anyone, Setcom leader like Andrew Dupree knows in his personal capacity that the sale of the Western Farm was a fabrication. When I say that, it's because we were at one time at Golden Harvest, and after our meeting there, it was Wednesday night, he said to myself and somebody I was with, the buyer does not have money to pay. That was in 2011. But 3 days thereafter, he's saying we are being summoned, sued for 38 million. So you can understand, Uri, how do you say at one breath, the buyer does not have money? On another hand, you are saying, give him the land because he is suing you for 38 million. Sue him for what? Which he cannot afford. If he cannot afford buying the land, then why is he suing for damages? And this you are told by the director of the very Setco. You understand? So then, because we resisted all that nonsense, then they say, okay, let us remove the leadership. This is what LFM wants. Let us call everybody to remove the land. This is what Setcom wants. Then maybe people like the division wanted the merger to go on. But the way we were developing, it was like we were not going to dissolve into any other race. We were going to stand together with. Because by then we have offices of our own. Our people are beginning to realize themselves and to operate independently. Now, why the measure? If I can afford my own salt, why continue borrowing from my neighbors? So that was the thing. So then people had multiple interests and we became the target. Then they fabricated that session, we challenged it, and we know in its response that we challenged the union to the division. And on the 10th of February 2013, the division, through its then treasurer, Mr. Ntani, and the vice president, Pastor Machamire, Dr. Machamire, they came there in Bloemfontein. And what was said, we mutually agreed to say we cannot call a session outside the scope of the Constitution. But lo and behold, when these guys went away and our executive committee members went away, I remained because I was a member of the union session, union executive. When I remained, Dr. Letsedi asked them, do we reverse our decision to allow the TOC to call the session? The members said, no way. But now we are charged, Runa, as the TOC, for being disobedient to the higher organization. But you have a union here. Just a few minutes after they were told the decision by the division on our appeal. After the division people have gone thinking we had agreed that the TOC will then call the session accordingly. The union then say, after Letsedi asked them, what do we do as a way forward? Do we reverse rescind the decision that we have taken to call that session? They said, no, we go ahead. And this is the 10th. And then 10th of February 2013. When was that session called to be? The 24th. You understand? So then they decided to go ahead, even against the decision of the SID. So now, one would ask a question. If this session that actually divided the TOC was called against the decision of the division, as agreed on the 10th of February 2013, why did the division not call the union to order? These are historical facts. You realize, is it that we have no leadership? I would say, I'm afraid, but yes, this is pure lack of leadership. Because how do you, as a division, say this is how sessions are called? And what you are doing, the TOC executive is right to say this is not according to policy. Then how do you allow a subdivision or sub-organization to go ahead against your appeal to call another session. I mean, the same session that was appealed against. And you just wink at it. We appealed after that on the 26th of February. And we were told around March to say that was the will of God. Is deliberate error, is deliberate insubordination the will of God? Is deliberate defiance the will of God? So these are the challenges that we have, the challenges of leadership. No, you must understand the division falls under SETCOM. Why I'm saying that, it's not a careless statement. Who is the registered owner of the assets of the division? SETCOM. Mona. You see, you must look at it very well. You know, if you can listen to policy, you will realize, Ori, the church is the company. We exist. Seventh-day Adventists in South Africa exist as a company and as a church. But the church exists for the company. The company is SETCO, and the church is Seventh-day Adventist. So the Seventh-day Adventists work for the company. And this company calls the shots. That is why even in addressing our problems, we are not pastoral. We use company law. You have a dispute, go to court. This is not church. This is the company. You look at the policies of SETCOM. I think it's policy F or S. I don't understand very well. You will realize, Hori, the church in South Africa does not exist as a legal entity. The legal entity of the church is SETCOM. So the church in South Africa exists legally as a company. That is why everything is held by that company. But is it true that everything is held under SETCOM? It's not true. It's not true that every property held and operated by the Seventh-day Adventist, it's under SETCOM. You've got various trust services, trusts that are holding property. You've got the Transvaal Development Trust, you've got the Cape Development Trust. There are some assets that are pushed there. Of late, those that are clever among the black people in the Trans-Orange Conference have established their own trusts to hold assets, but they are against the members who say, let the conference hold the assets that are under its jurisdiction. So you can see there is discord, you can see there is dishonesty in terms of approaching this question, both from the division up to the local members. Yeah, I think people need to know the truth. And since 2013 February, we have intensified our research on how SETCOM get to own the title of our properties. And we have realized the latest up to 1986, from 1950, the documents we have, 56, 58, whereby SETCOM makes a declaration to say they are a group of white only, and therefore they are entitled to own land. You must remember, title, before 1998-99, the black people were not having title to land. they were having land rights, right to land, like, for example, 99-year lease. It's only after 1998, 99, if I'm not mistaken, that the blacks were now allowed to have title deeds. So then, Setcom, until then, was using the apartheid laws, where they were making a declaration. But let me say it openly. Is there any committee member in this union from 1990 or from 1990? It's when the Southern Union and the Southern Africa Union merged again, 1990. Now, before that, was there any member of this church who knew the reason, the exact reason why Setcom is said to be holding the properties of the church? I don't think so, because it's only now that it has become apparent, and we have documentary evidence that says it is because Setcom is white. It is not saying we hold property because it's the policy of the church. When they vote in the open executive committees, they say we know property is held by Setcom. But in the secret chambers, there are other documents that are not privileged to the public that say this is a declaration given to the deeds office to say, don't be surprised, it's because we are all white and male. So is that the policy of the church? Anyone doubting this, it's free to ask for reference, and we will give the reference. Now, the second point that says that Setcom should not be owning property is the recent case in 2013, where the West Rand, represented by Brother Tlhagwane, was against the union and Setcom to say they are giving the West Rand farm for free. And Judge Bakwa says, actually, no one needs to challenge Setcom, because Setcom did not even need to call the February 24, 2013 session in Bloemfontein, because it is the trust and the beneficiary. It's a trustee and a beneficial owner. And you cannot be a trustee and an owner at the same time. You look at how the vaccine clause in the deeds registry, it's like a history to say, when I Setcom, where did you get these things? Setcom does not disclose that I'm given this property. It has been bought by Middlelands, and Middlelands people want their title to be held by me in trust. It is like Setcom has bought and Setcom is securing as a trust. You know? So that is why then we have no say. Setcom can evict anyone it wants, because there is a historical gap that has been made that this Seventh-day Adventist people and this Setcom must address. This is to amend the vaccine clause in all the titles to give a correct historical perspective, to say Setcom is not a landowner. People have never decided and willed that Setcom must be the landowner on their behalf. People know that they are owners. They are just giving Setcom an opportunity to be a trustee, not a beneficiary, a trustee. But now what happened? They can sell without your mandate. They can sell without your will. They can harass you at your property to show that they are not the church. One could just ask a simple, interesting question. What has been the mission benefit of Setcom to the mission of the church? Do you have any evangelistic campaign supported by Setcom? Do you have any simple cottage built for mission by Setcom? Nothing. But at the end of the day, after all this hard work, Setcom can simply say, I want this, I don't want that. And it has the papers. No. So, to respond to that, the other aggression that we did, it was when we said in our constitution in 2011, Trans-Orange Conference Constitution, we must establish our own trust. So that as a people, we must control our own destiny and our own assets. This thing angered people. And then it was the fabrication of those so-called Hebrew boys to try to say, we are impatient of this committee, impatient of this administration. What is it trying to do? But what was wrong? What is wrong in saying we must amend our own constitution? Is it not within our rights? You look at the departmental policy of the General Conference and of the Union subsequently, it will tell you that a conference can run all departments that are in the General Conference, provided it has capacity. You don't ask for permission to start a new department as a conference. You don't ask for permission to remove a department from the union as a conference. We are not a field. But this angered ignorant people and started fabricating stories to do what? To demolish and to rubbish all the progress that we were making. Yeah, that Beechwood thing in 2013. Hey, you know, people, you know, look, that Beechwood thing. They called the PricewaterhouseCoopers and Setcom that they were going to give a report. Number one, Setcom was going to. You must remember that was in October, and in few weeks, less than a month, they were going for a regular session. Now, Setcom, if the conference does not have a trust services of its own, then the trust services of the union will work as a department of the conference. In other words, they will wear two caps. Now, before a regular session, all departments report via the executive to session. So was that Leaders' Council of Beechwood to play a role of session? Did the executive receive the report of Setcom? Since when? Now, if the executive had received or have received the report of Setcom, that report was to be bundled with all reports sent to the delegates to be discussed at session. Do you call a Leaders' Council 3 weeks before the regular session to discuss a report sent to churches? You don't. So you ask yourself, why that meeting? Setcom. And I stood up in that meeting. I said, hey guys, what you are doing is very irregular, because Setcom is a department of the conference. If it has a report to give, it must give to the churches via the session. This is how departments report. And what did they say? They called me out of order. Number two, they called PricewaterhouseCoopers to come and give, I don't know what type of report, but a financial report. Now I ask a question. PricewaterhouseCoopers is a public accounting firm. We are private. We are regulated by session, by policy in how audits are to be done. Now I say to them, how do you give an audit report by PricewaterhouseCoopers outside of a financial statement, outside of a financial report? Why don't you have this audit report inserted as an opinion on the financial systems of the organization? You cannot take 2 pages out and say, this is an audit report of what? There must be a text. There must be a context. So if PricewaterhouseCoopers have something to say, let it say it at session, which is coming in a few weeks' time. So then you can see, we've number one, we've got arrogant and I don't know what type of leaders, but there's no leadership. And again, the membership is gullible because it is ignorant. That was a waste of money. And by the way, then they said, yeah, the administration, you know, God is good. And I wish we gave a rich I wish we could have eaten the money. But how do we live over 40 million in cash and still eat money? How do we give grants to districts, 3 million, and still eat money? We produced documentary evidence of 7.1 million that we spent. And that 7.1 million was on property and development. What else have we, how much else have we spent and have we used? Nothing. But now what is funny, you will have double audits on the allegation that Setsiba's administration ate money. You will have double audits. Number one, you will have the internal audit by the General Conference. And number two, you will have the results of PricewaterhouseCoopers. Now, this happened in 2013. Now, meaning that you'll have an audit opinion on 2012. That is the last full year that we're in office. You'll have again the same audit by PricewaterhouseCoopers for 2012. You have two audit reports. Number one, the General Conference audit, 2013, issued in 2013 on the 2012 statement. What does it say about Setsiba's administration? Nothing. Where was Setsiba? Absent. So in our absence, we are justified that we never squandered any money. Ne? It's now 2018. Now you have in the 2013 audit that was done for 2012 financial year. You must remember the financial year ends 31st December. So the 31st December 2012, the 1st January 2013, at least 3 months you are recapping to prepare for audit. So when they removed us in February, we were still preparing for closing 2012. It closed in our absence, but it never found us guilty. Secondly, we have a management report to the auditor, exit interview, where the management, the president, treasurer, secretary, makes a declaration on certain questions. And they never implicated us. But outside they tell people we ate money. But to the General Conference audit on their exit interview, they say no one ate money of the present or the past employees. Now, you come to PricewaterhouseCoopers. Since 2013, they have been having what they call a draft report. Ne? When are they going to give a provisional report or a final report? We wrote letters in 2014, 2015. We wrote letters. We have copies of those letters. We wrote letters to PricewaterhouseCoopers. Finish your report. We want to know what happened. Because we were implicated in Polokwane on your draft. Finish it, let's hear. They say we never said anything like that. We wrote letters to Orange Grove. The treasurer was Kanyile. Yewena, make it a point PricewaterhouseCoopers finishes the report. What happened? They said, no, we never said anything like that. There was never such a report like that. Where is the report? There is never such a report 5 years down the line. So who's fooling who here? Yeah, you see, you just need to be sober and quiet. Don't be emotional. Look at it this way. People challenge us of forming a breakaway. Okay? But Judge President Liu, in the Tsetse case in Northwest High Court, explained what breaking away is. He said breaking away is moving away from the established policies. Ne? And he called Mongwe and his group as breakaway, who moved away from the established policies of the church in February 24, 2013. And what are we trying to do? We are saying, brethren, come back to the right path. We are not bound to follow people when they do wrong. We stood and are staying to call them to order. So then, before then, you will remember, you alluded previously to the Beechwood meeting on the 6th of October, where we thought we were going to make things good at the Leaders' Council. Conscientize the people to say we have been infiltrated by a wrong spirit here. We are taking the wrong direction. But what happened? Even before that October meeting, you have a letter of August. I don't remember the date, written by Danga, who was the secretary of Orange Grove. Danga says the churches that don't support us, they must know that they will not be admitted at the coming regular session. And then you have the October meeting. Those churches sent their delegates to that meeting. What do you find? You find bouncers. People are refused entry in the church meeting that is legally called or lawfully called, I will say so. But they are refused to enter. Then people have a question: how are we going to address this impasse? Then when they were expelled, they said it's either we use violence, and if we use violence, this is the church. We love our church. What do? Then they decided to call a meeting on the 13th of October 2013 and took a resolution. What is the way forward? We cannot resolve these matters within the church standard and procedures. What do? We decided to go to court. Now, did we break away? No. We remained where we were. People must remember that Setsiba's administration is the only administration that was chosen by both factions. In that, in 2010, this is the administration that was chosen. And therefore, we cannot begin to say a group of people chose who to be what. It is the TOC that chose Setsiba to lead. And this is a united TOC that have done that. But we've got a other group that is continuing to work outside of the TOC. In that, for example, how do you conclude on a quorum for elections? How do you conclude on it? To say this session corrects, how do you conclude on that? When in 2015, December, there were about 86 delegates from the TOC at the union's session. Now, when you look at it, 86 people representing being a certain fraction of the total membership, they were asked a question: why are you so many when the TOC has split? And they said, which TOC has split? But at the same time, they had written letters. Letsedi wrote a letter in 2014 to call us a splinter group. But in 2015, there is no split. But in 2014, the union says there's a breakaway. But in 2015, at the session, they said there's no breakaway. So there are a lot of inconsistencies that really show if a person is sober, it's not emotional. Just look at facts from cause to effect. People are not truthful. Yeah. You see, this is another issue that shows, I mean, tithing, it's a voluntary exercise. It's not a payment of debt, contractual debt that you have incurred with BMW or with Edgar's. You understand? Therefore, you don't owe any earthly authority any money. When people tithe, it's between me and God. And when I tithe, I'm financing mission. Mission that does not destroy me. So then how can people tithe and the church uses their tithe to actually evict them, victimize them, and silence them? The tithe must be used so that people must, you cannot say, I use tithe to save souls while your soul is perishing. So then the people of Mafike, because they did not support these LFM structures, what did they do? This Budanga, they closed their accounts, go Standard Bank.
So what was the court outcome?
So the court then realized, no, this is wrong. Who are they? They have no mandate to do that. So the accounts were reopened. And the church dealt with the money according to their conscience. You see, people should understand that we in Albertine haven't been dragging the church to courts. Never. But we have been responding. I think if we have been 100 times to court, 99 times we have been to court to defend ourselves. We have been to court on the issue of what we call the main case, which is actually fundamental to what caused the split of the church, in an attempt to heal the breach. In other words, we took them to court so that we can amend issues. But they have been taking us to court so that we can feel their power. But unfortunately, God is good. That's why we are still alive. And every time they would be winning, they win because they did urgent applications, caught us by surprise, undefended, got a rule nisi, things like that. It's not a fair and square challenge of issues. 2015, in fact 2014, they were resisting us actually advancing this issue of the main case. And what did we do? Johannesburg, Gauteng South, we won. 2014 December, they took us to Pretoria, Gauteng North, to say we must never call ourselves Adventists. We won. 2015 May, we went to court on the main case of February 24 to address those issues so that we can heal these wounds and address the issue of unity in the church. What did they do? They opposed. What did we do? The judge said, look, let's allow these people to have this matter postponed so that they can have sufficient time. In case they lose, they must not say we stifled them from defending themselves. But what happened? They just say, okay, they must pay us at the cost of 3 councils. So then we had November 27, 28, 2017. We went to court. What did they do? They admit that the 24th February was wrong. But now the moral question is, if you are a leader and you mistakenly took a decision with this type of consequences, what would you do? Can you approach the court, say, court, I was wrong, but fail to go to your people to mend issues? Is that a moral decision? Or maybe that is an intellectual accent that has no conscience. It's artificial intelligence. You see, artificial intelligence, you can maybe press a doorbell and the doorbell rings and says, sorry, there's no one at home. It has no conscience. So, was this admission a question of intelligence that is artificial, not rooted in a conscience? Because it means they even knew before they went to court, or what they did was wrong. But now, knowing it, why do you perpetuate hatred? Why do you perpetuate such fightings and division in the church when you know the main cause, it's your fault? So you can see then, should the judgment be in our favor, we are sitting with people who don't have consciences. Where is honesty? What are we fighting about? How do we fight about our own properties? How do we fight about the rules of the church when people know they have breached those rules? People in authority know, but they refuse. Who is intending to make a new church here? Is it people in Alberton who are defending the landmarks of the church? Or is it those who are eroding those landmarks? And it is true we cannot depend on Ted Wilson, because this is not Ted Wilson's church, it's my church. Once I give consent to the rules of the church, it becomes my church. And it is people who consented to those rules who choose the leadership. You see the difference. So we have an ignorant or a careless membership here and a careless leadership here. I don't know for how long. Why is it an issue when black people want their own property, but it is never an issue when whites and other colors have their own properties in their own names? In fact, this diabolic system, do you know that when God created salvation, he never created Setcom? Setcom was started in 1921. When was this church established? Before 1921. And if you look at why Setcom was instituted in Africa, 1921, it was to be the beneficiary of dispossessed land that was taken. Land removal, forced removals, land grab by Cecil John Rhodes and his cronies, bequeathed them to Setcom. What do you call that? That is not godly. And you can see that colonialism has always been by missionary activity and colonial entrepreneurs. Missionary activity, colonial entrepreneurs. They followed each other to dispossess Africa. Now today we are liberated, but we cannot run mission in our own country. We cannot say we don't want to build here, we want to build there in our own country. Who is stopping us? The company within the church. It's not the church, the company within the church. Yeah, even yeah, you see, I think it's very proper for people to understand in context that who are the warring factions in this debacle. In that, number one, how is the church organized? I think it will help us to realize that we, from day one, before February 24, 2013, it was the TOC executive against the union. Ne? And the session that actually caused this split in the TOC territory is not the TOC session. It's the union session. Who was chairing? Who called? Who advertised the agenda? Ne? So then, the session that is being contested in court it's not the TOC session. It's the union session that manipulated the TOC constituency. That meeting is the one that must be annulled. So now, in court, from 2013 until 2017 and until I don't know when, we have two parties. It is the Setsiba administration versus the union. Now, we don't care of the consequences of that union sessions that it appointed Mongwe. Mongwe is a beneficiary of that confusion. Shongwe is a subsequent beneficiary of that confusion. So we don't care how many times, but where is the TOC? The TOC is where its constitution is. And where is the constitution of the TOC? In the hands of its custodians, the leadership elected in 2010. So now, I always say, people should not feel compromised when, for example, I'm sitting with the newly elected Mongwe as a president. He is welcomed. I can even refer to him as president because he's president of an organization, but the nature of the organization is given to by the policies, administrative policies. So what type of organization is that? It doesn't have a constitution. So it's a what? It's a field, president of the field. So even Shongwe, president of the field, they can have the next 100 people. They will not be presidents of the TOC. They'll be presidents of the field because they have usurped the power, but not only usurping power at the TOC constituency meeting. They usurped power at a fake meeting. That is why we want it to be declared null and void. So we don't care about their consequences. Look, we gave them notice. We gave them notice to say, look, this is, and fortunately as South Africans, we should be aware of how these constitutional issues have long-term and serious impacts in as far as how when an organization flouts its own constitution, whatever consequence of a conference are null and void. We know. I mean, this is on daily papers about the ANC conferences and so on. So organizations which created their own constitutions must call meetings according to the prescripts of those constitutions. No shortcuts. So then, at this stage, even in court, the councils that were employed there for representation, they were not representing Orange Grove. They were representing the union. Because it is the conference querying the conduct of the union. You understand? So now, other people will say, but look at the papers. Why do you have when you and your committee, you are appearing there as individuals, and then you say the TOC, the union, the division, and the general conference, it as corporates, but you as when you are the TOC. He said, no, man, look at it this way. If people steal my car, and it's my only car, how do I claim it when I go to the police station to report? Do I go with it or do I walk? I walk because possession of that car is with somebody unauthorized. You see? So then what we do then, because we defend the constitution of the TOC, then we cite where the TOC has been robbed, has been raped, has been brutalized by this conduct. And they all agree. Now, if they all agree, why don't they restore the TOC? You understand? So that's like that. This is not a leadership fight. This is a principle, a fight on principle. That is why I say it cannot be resolved by handshake. It will be addressed by attending to those principles, that never again should principles governing the organization be flouted at will or whim of the people. I mean, otherwise then it will mean, I was saying one day to our advocates to say, look, this is not a fight of chieftaincy, who's the chief of the tribe. Because what the chief remains forever. This is a fight on principle. How should this church run its affairs? And once we agree, then we will start from the start. We will start from scratch, I mean. So then the way forward is like, we go to court if we win. When we win this matter, that's fine. We will then be in charge of the TOC, confirmed. And what will we do? We will give responsible leadership. If we lose this case, I don't know on which point. Why am I saying so? Because we stated policy and constitution, and there was no contrary argument against what we asserting. This is a historical fact, which we were supporting by policy. No one said, look, you can't read English, you can't interpret English. This is what policies say. They said, yes, my lady, what we did was wrong. February 24 was wrong, but what has been done has been done. So I'm simply saying, if we lose, we will like to lose on points that are educative, because we don't want to repeat this again. We should know, okay, we lost because we did not understand certain phrases. But up to now, I don't know, and the judge is still to give the judgment, but having attended the case and listened to arguments and read the papers, I mean, I was involved in those papers, we have never had to answer any policy or clarities, things like, we were educating them, reminding them of how this church runs. And if we were wrong, they were to contradict or correct us. But they didn't, they couldn't. So now, the way forward then, it's true, my brother. It is true, we want SETCOM reform. People must have title deed of their assets. You know what is the importance of this title deed? It is because it will give us value with which to can speed mission. So if we don't have title deed, it's not a holy thing, because we do little with much sweat. You understand? Times have changed. It is required by justice. Number two, we want to leave a legacy in the church, that there should be no set of influential people who will be kingmakers outside of the regular prescripts of the order of the church. All people should ascend to authority following the right processes of the church. No grabbing of anything, no pushing and shoving of people, survival of the fittest in the church. There should be no struggle. This is an orderly church, and order must be followed. So we still need to educate people to say, look, this was said about us. It has never been proved to be true, but people are still divided and they are not told the truth. So the decision comes, let's say by March, then it's in our favor, then we will have to educate everybody. When people are sufficiently educated and they see the direction, then we will call a regular session to regularize issues. We are not going to compete forever being in one house with divided loyalties. Unity must be consent that stems from understanding. Not unity to say we are forced. That's why I'm saying the court will never unite us. It is only understanding of what is right that will bring unity and harmony.